Did you check in?
Okay, let's get going. Cheyenne, we'll start. Welcome to the Tuesday, January 21st Hartland Selectboard meeting. It's 5:32. The first order of business for us are the minutes from January 6th. I would entertain a motion to accept those.
I make a motion, we accept the minutes from January 6th.
Thank you, Jim. A second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Grace. Any discussion? Good job. Everyone set? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Moving on to the orders or the warrants for today. Again, I'll entertain a motion to accept those.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jim. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Clyde. Any discussion?
So what happened to the library funds?
If you really want to know, it's a small little, it was a small little piece of plastic that went bad. ARC came in. There's two bills from ARC for the library. One is their semi-annual maintenance, that HVAC one. The other one it was essentially exhausting into the building. So they came, they diagnosed, they fixed, problem solved.
For me, as many patrons there as possible, in order to fix the engine.
And John, the HVAC has been suspect at times. We're still on the same suspect HVAC system.
It is, but honestly, it seems to be working fine. This is one of those things that happens from time to time. This was not, as related to the age or quality of the system.
Okay, great. Jim?
I have one thing to talk about, but we should probably do it last.
Okay. Is it the Comcast?
Yeah.
Okay, it's on my list too. I was struck with a fairly small $1,600 expense for the welding. Is this related to just the plows kind of working the back roads and the Quechee Road right now and braking because of the...
Yeah, this was kind of, I talked to BJ about this. This is a thing that happens. The feet break off. I think this was the plow on Rob's truck wouldn't go down. So this is just kind of routine, unfortunately, routine maintenance.
And I did smile this morning when I saw that we bought the fireworks for 4th of July. So I was like shivering in my...
We get a small discount if we pay for them ahead of time, so.
Okay. Great.
The Comcast bill, that's the same thing that we talked about last.
That's the same thing we talked about last meeting.
Yes.
And I think there's 3 of us now that noticed that. So Jim, do you want to start on that one?
Yeah, so just kind of a general, brain dump here. The Three Corners project, right? We had about $1 million bond, a little more, right? We had close to 500,000 in grants, and we expected that we would have to take about $400,000 from the highway fund to complete the project. Now, the good news is we never dipped into the contingency money that was built into that budget, so roughly $2.25 that we never had to spend. So, I don't have all the invoices probably. When you look at the whole thing, our invoiced amounts are going to be higher than the bond and the grants combined. So there's a gap there that we have to cover. Guesstimate somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000. Now, at the same time, we have a surplus from last year in the general fund that we're carrying as an unencumbered balance. It was about, somewhere in the $200,000 range between, increased revenue and under an expense. So rather than authorize money to be taken from the highway fund, which we need for other purposes, right, to cover that expense, I would just suggest that we advise the town manager to cover it, cover any remaining expenses from Three Corners with the surplus from the general fund.
Yeah. Jim, everything you said is what I remember. And I think we did not make a motion to go into the highway fund. I think we said, we know the money's there. Should we need it, we would then
Correct.
go for it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good idea, just given what we have ahead
Yeah, so,
on the highway side.
go ahead.
So I keep asking for sources and uses on this and still haven't seen it, so visually I'd like to see.
Other than accounting of the Three Corners.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
and then, what do we have and so on. I mean,
Yeah, it's,
as a newer board member, I don't know what other board members said we would use for funds, so.
yes.
So I'm really uncomfortable talking about taking a fund from this pot or that pot without, let's just
Well,
see.
I mean, the good news is we don't have to take action if it's just coming out of the general fund surplus. But I understand you want the accounting. I will say it's not straightforward, right? But I think maybe the two of us could just sit with you and go through what we know, kind of show the spreadsheet,
Yeah.
walk through it.
It should be lower, it should be more $100,000 than $200,000 that we're over. It's
Yeah.
largely the Comcast
I'm
bill.
putting a range on it because
Yeah.
I just don't know if I have all the invoices.
Right. So at this point, we've received all the invoices that we anticipate. Comcast came in significantly higher. At the last meeting, we talked about trying to track down to see if we could find an estimate.
Right.
We did a search of previous communications and there was no estimates to be found.
I sent you what I had,
Right.
but didn't have any numbers in it.
Any numbers in there, right?
Yeah, I think the Comcast was a bit of a shock to have that $100,000 bill come in so late. So I agree with everyone that's spoken that let's get a final accounting on that part and then move into that. John, as I read the mutual payment to the Windsor County Sheriff, again, we asked for a report. As a board, we're not getting those reports, you are. So I'd like to sort of get a status as we, what are we, 10 months, 9 months into the contract?
So-
Sort of see where we are.
And Jen, just going back to the Three Corners, when do you think we'll have an estimate on the lighting so that we can have that as part of the?
So there seems to be like just a kind of a delay in like communication. So it's a work in progress. It continues to be a work in progress. At this point, there's no construction going to be happening.
I understand it. It's
So-
just that when we're talking about Three Corners and all the bills, there's still that bill out there as well. And so I don't want people to think
that
we're
bill-
done after we have,
Right, that bill's
Right.
coming from a different bucket. It's
Correct.
coming
I don't
from-
care. It's still the Three Corners
Reserve.
project.
Sure.
Correct.
There's also two
Yes.
parts to that. We have the engineering firm that we're finalizing what we're doing with.
Yep.
But then we need actually someone with a shovel to actually get the work done.
Okay.
Yeah, so, good. Any other questions on the orders or warrants? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Thank you. Are there any adjustments to the agenda tonight? John, do you have any?
No. Actually, before we move away, so we approved the warrants a few meetings back with the $100,000 payment for the pole property. There were some lingering questions. Is there continued discussion, or would we like to be able to send that? Albertville Land Trust would like that check.
So I think I know you and I have had discussion, I've read emails, which I don't know if went to all of us from Peg Marins, I think we did.
They did.
But I would like to clarify, can we do that under the,
We can do it later. I just don't want to, because it was a payment, I wanted to talk about it now, but we can talk about it later if that's the
I mean,
preference.
we can do it right now under old business if you're.
Yeah, it's part of the orders.
Okay.
Right.
So why don't we do that as the first item under old business?
Okay.
Are there any public comments other than the tower proposal? Because we're going to talk about the tower separately.
Sherry Clark, follow-up is my term for the 2025 year. And I'm following up on our dog ordinance. Back in July 29th, you signed a warrant, the dog warrant, and to the town constable. 90 days he had to complete it. What did you get back as a report?
I'm not aware that we did get a report back, John.
We have not gotten a report back from the constable since that time.
That's 2 years in a row now.
Yeah. This is a bigger issue than just that report, Jerry. We're I think, on the cusp of looking how we use the constable and changing, using those monies other ways. So I would sort of, John, could you please follow up on that?
So if Plan A doesn't work, what's the management plan B for compliance?
I'm going to go out on a limb here. To do away with the constable and use those monies for one of the two entities that we have for policing today.
I'm sorry, say that again.
To do away with the position of the constable and then to use the monies that are allocated for that job for one of the two entities that we have today that are doing policing.
In the meantime,
You know, we have an elected person out there.
Right.
okay, so I mean, we have talked about this.
Yes.
And I just think, I'm just following up because this was publicly stated at the select board meeting, and I just, follow up for the community
Yep. It is an elected
regarding,
position.
Constable? Oh, yeah.
this status, because
So I'll follow up and see if we can get a report and then we'll build on that from there.
so are you getting reports regarding other actions he's taken in town? Are you getting logs?
We do get a log when an invoice is submitted from the constable, we get a log of actions.
All right, so was there any documentation in those logs regarding the dog ordinance, regarding his work towards this dog ordinance?
No.
So it's not documented, it's not done.
Okay. Also, I just want to clarify that we as a select board do not manage the constable. It's an elected position, essentially a free agent out there. They have responsibilities as outlined by the state, but, so we're not hard bind here to sort of say,
You don't feel he's accountable to you regarding this ordinance?
I think Phil's just speaking the state statute. Right? We
So,
have no control of the clerk's
so
office.
this should be reported.
and John is saying there's some reporting,
Right.
you know,
So
to
I
the
think
degree
what
that
we heard is John's gonna follow up with the constable
Yeah.
to see
No, but
what the status is
Right.
of
what I'm
his
saying,
actions around.
what I'm saying is that the constable is not living up to his oath or his pledge. And did he accept this warrant?
I believe so, yeah.
So he's not living up to it, so this 2 years in a row, and who knows?
Well, I don't know
Is
if
it
we know.
reportable at the next
Right.
level, at the state or county level?
Right. So I don't think we know the answer. I think the town manager and a town manager form of government is responsible for fire and police. So I think John is taking the action item to follow up the constable to see what the status is.
Correct, with the caveat that as an elected position, we have limited authority over the position.
Right. That's true.
And you could check with the clerk and see how many delinquent dogs have been licensed since that date.
Since, yeah.
Since
that's what I
July
mean.
29th.
We don't have any documentation other than the clerk, but anyway, I mean, it was just really curious. I just had so many questions and trying to understand, but this is, it's a long process.
It's a long process.
It's a long process.
And a
the
frustrating
only way we can solve it is through communication. We start with communication.
Can we put it on the next agenda?
It's already on.
It's already
my
on.
list for the
Thank
next
you
agenda.
very much. And also, what would we do with that if we decide to not allocate funds for that position any longer?
We would have,
Who then would be doing the job?
we would have to warn
So-
the, with an article.
Right, it'd be a different, that's a different
Do
conversation.
we have an animal control officer?
We do.
We do.
Why are they not the ones doing the dog things?
So just one more thought. Based on this ordinance, based on that warrant, it's very harsh. Impound or destroy. Are we in favor of those two? I mean, I'm not in favor of destroying. So we need to look at, those are some of the language that needs to be looked at to see exactly what the management plan is versus just an ordinance.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, thank you. Are there public comments? Any online?
No comments.
Good, then, moving on to old business, a brief update on the Pole property. Just a general statement, Upper Valley Land Trust is very close to finishing the final work on conserving the property right here on the Quechee Road and Bischoff Lane. And as folks may know, there was a set aside of approximately 7 acres in the area that we all affectionately called Sandpit for the possibility of a community housing project. One of our questions that we sent back to Upper Valley Land Trust had to concern was should a housing project, community housing project, not be possible, could the town use that as a potential site for, say, the fire department to move across the street? And one of the things that came back in the last round of correspondence is that one of the primary agencies that's funding this acquisition, besides the town money that we're contributing, is the, help me with this.
Vermont
Housing Conservation Board.
Vermont Housing and Conservation Board. The key word is housing. So they are expecting a housing project to possibly happen on this site. And that's written into forever, so that they're aware that should we not be able to do a housing, may want to use it for another town option. But that's the feedback that we got. And to me, that was one of the last holdouts for passing along the allocated money that the town voted on last year.
Right. There was, I think, questions about whether or not we could purchase it back, and feedback with the land trust, you said the keyword was housing. The other half of that is conservation. They are happy to simply have the land be conserved while a housing option is pursued. There is no time limit on what that looks like.
So I think we're ready to release the money.
So I gotta say, I'm happy with that because we had mentioned in our, so there's a couple of things we had mentioned. One was, could the town purchase the property if there was no use? And my direct question was, given that we donated $100,000, would it be fair market? Would we get a sort of a discounted price or something like this? And that, in my estimate, has not been raised. Secondly is that if the property can't be used for housing, but the town has a use for it, to me, the conservancy aspect of this is not the 7 acres. It's everything else.
Right.
And this just happens to be part of the property.
Yeah.
And so whether it's been miscommunication or whatever, but I just feel it's been somewhat disingenuous when we've seen nothing in writing of it.
So that question was asked specifically on whether we could purchase it back and how it would look like. And there was not a clean answer given, but to paraphrase, the answer is there is no plan to sell that land back, that 7 acres back at all, period.
Well, even if we got a long-term lease for our use or whatever, I mean, that was never stated that they couldn't, it was stated that we could potentially use that 7 acres.
Yeah, that was one of the few points that we sent back to them to say we want to clarify on that one. And what a sadness for me is we're hearing this from Upper Valley Land Trust. We're not hearing this from the actual conservancy group that's spending the money in the state on that part. So, you know, I don't know what we can do. I mean, the town has approved it, moving the funds along. I don't know if we can hold them off any longer.
Okay, I'll just voice my displeasure on how this went. I feel as though we were misled.
Yeah.
And maybe we weren't. I've worked a lot with them in the past, and I respect their, but I just think this was not how
It's just a lack of follow-up. You know, we had some specific requests and then it just kind of.
And also,
took a life of its own.
the Vermont Housing Conservation Board is part of the funding tranche, just like we're part of the thing. And so they're whatever, I don't know how much they're contributing, but it seems as though they have certain rights and they have, you know, but we have no rights except we're just giving them $100,000. And even though we have needs in town and it's an old gravel pit, and what we're hearing is to date, we're probably not going to see housing in there because of due to water and so on.
Due to water. Yeah.
And so, you know, we could certainly do it in a very sensitive way, but just say from the onset, it's a no. I think that's unacceptable.
I'm willing to write a letter on behalf of the board to just basically try to argue that point one more time. But again, it feels like if we do that, we may be the ogres holding up the final sale that's been going on for so long right now.
You could do it a different way. You could, you know, let the transaction go through, but write the letter that reference back to the actual meeting. So there's a video of that meeting when we kind of went through these issues and got responses. And just say, you know, please watch from, you know, hour and 15 minutes to an hour and 45 minutes when we'll discuss this.
Or just have John talk to Jeannie McIntyre, who's the executive director of the Upper Valley Ranch. And just say we had this discussion and, you know.
I think
we've done enough letter writing.
Discussion, though, just so we.
No, I want to move along with the payment, but I'm doing it,
No,
holding my nose.
For that meeting, it'd be good to review that video, so we have the bullet points of what the discussion topics were.
Yeah, I'm real anxious to have this going. We just, we're alerted to grant monies that could have, if we were further along, possibly help with walking trail development on the property.
But I think in the future, we need things in writing before we do this.
Right. So I think, and I wasn't here for the beginning of the conversation, but I suspect that this was a conversation that should have taken place in that initial phases of this project development. If there was a desire from the town to use that 7 acre set aside for other purposes.
Yeah, we had the discussion before town meeting last year, so it would have been right around this time.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right.
So we can circle back
Bill
on those
mentioned
meetings.
the fire station
Yep.
at that meeting, so that's
Okay.
not a surprise.
So we'll circle back. I can review the videos of
It
those.
came when we learned the bombshell that they couldn't do housing.
Yeah.
You know, that the funding for Twin Pines was basically saying unless there was town water there. So it was right in that time that our vision for the whole project started changing pretty radically.
Okay.
And can I have one last thing, because someone approached me this. The people who are now managing, paying it and so on, will they continue, or is there gonna be a new process in selecting who gets to do that work?
So that's all in the hands of the Upper Valley Land Trust, right? They will continue to maintain an agricultural use. How that is selected, we
So
have
we
no-
don't know.
We don't, we're not a part of
We're
that
not part of
process.
that.
Right.
Okay, any other? Okay, moving on to the town meeting articles for this March. We looked at them and discussed them at the last meeting. There were two, perhaps three, that we asked John to get some legal feedback on. So I'll turn it over to you, John.
Sure, so there's been a few changes and they were included in the copy that went out in your packet. So just walking down Article 1, when we originally discussed them, the school director positions were in there. Those were taken out because those are not a part of the town process. They were inadvertently included last year. They've been removed. Article 3 was that article that was discussed. We anticipated that appropriation request coming in, so that's a new appropriation, which is why its own separate article.
So that's official now.
That's official now, right? That is official. And then the feedback that we got from the attorney who did the review, which talked about, it's Article 4, Article 9, and Article 10. Article 4, there was originally some language about using the money for the purposes of equipment purchases. That language is strongly recommended to not be in there because it's gonna, in essence, leading the voters in a certain direction. So it's up to you all to decide how the equipment fund gets used in the future. We can discuss it at town meeting during the presentation, but we were advised to not have it in the language of the article.
That's fine. My assumption is the equipment fund was founded to buy equipment, so it's kind of irrelevant.
Yes. Flipping to the back, Article 9, that's the elimination of the Office of Town Lister. You had requested that language be simplified, and it was. It was. We took a few.
Whereas is out?
Yeah, we took a little bit of legalese out of that.
There were terms in here that none of us, article this. Anyway, it looked like the quarterback calling signals at one of the weekend's games.
Right. And then Article 10, voting the authorizing the select board to sell the North Fountain School Building. Again, the same thing that we just discussed for Article 3, that second sentence with the proceeds being used for the betterment of Helen Hurrier Park. We were encouraged to take that out of there again. Talk about that during the meeting, but not have that language in the article itself.
So in 10, my thought is, when we have a building lot, it's assumed then the lot will be big enough to support water and septic.
Correct. I mean, that's a buildable lot, yes.
Oh, okay, right.
Yes, and then we made one other correction. We actually spelled Tom's name correctly down below. That was the one that went out in your packet. Your name was spelled incorrectly.
Yes.
Right, so we made a minor correction there.
John, on Article 9, which is changing the office of the town lister to essentially a contract with a qualified assessor. We talked about having a part-time employee to be physically in the office. So again, the advice is to leave that out.
To leave that out, and that comes up in the presentation.
Operational issue.
Yeah, at town meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good, thank you, John.
So do we have to reauthorize this or reapprove them?
I would approve them and sign them because there was changes to it.
I'll make a motion to approve the articles as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
I heard 2 seconds.
That's to your left.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. going on to new business, we have Everett Hammond with us today. Everett worked with us during the construction project, and John entered into a contract with Everett to do a review of our paved roads that are not other than the Hartland Quechee Road. Everett tonight will just update us on the highlights of the study that he performed. I'm hoping everyone had a chance to sort of to look through it, and I'll turn over to you, Everett.
All right, appreciate it, Bill. And welcome, good to see you again. Tom, Bill, Clyde, and Trace, good to meet today, and Jim. We're going to start off with this document here first. You know, if you all have that one.
Yep.
Okay, and good introduction, and this does, just so you know, it does exclude Quechee Hartland Road, except when you get to the capital plan, I've got slots for whatever the board decides at some point, because there should be one document. So moving forward with all the roads, and that could
We
be,
have 11.7 miles of paved road plus 6 for Quechee.
right, plus just about 6, right? Yeah, exactly. So I think that's probably more than, we were hoping probably, I think we thought there might have been 5 miles of paved going into it. And, but the good thing is, if you look at the front cover page, you've got 72% of no maintenance. So the road, you know, excluding Quechee Hartland Road, everything else, the town has done a great job maintaining and keeping up. So and that's phenomenal. You're probably not gonna be lucky to find, well, then again, it's probably like 50% when you include Quechee Hartland Road, but looking at these roads, that's pretty phenomenal. And preventative would be 12%, and rehab 9%, and reconstruction 7%. So the town really is, you know, in pretty good shape as they move forward. And I think this was a good request, you know, to look, you know, as you're going into the bigger issues, you know, where do you stand with all the rest of the roads? So I think that was pretty important. I'm gonna skip through page 2, that'll be finalized in the final report, you know, updated, this is just kind of trying to keep it on track right now. On page 3, like I just mentioned 70%, you know, the first big paragraph there is no maintenance, 12% required preventative, and doing a very good job. And one of the key things that I will mention a couple times in here, I think you already picked it up on it, Bill, is the town, any town, really wants to avoid the worst first methodology. In other words, if you put all your money into the worst roads, you know, you're gonna be putting a lot of capital, a lot of money to that, and without preserving some of the roads that you could save from getting worse. And basically, it's gonna cost you a lot more money in the long run. Different for sidewalks. Sidewalks, for example, yeah, it's in water mains, you don't need water mains here, but sidewalks, you do a little bit. Yeah, you wanna do the worst first on sidewalks. And it doesn't, yeah, it's a tough concept to grasp, but it does make sense. And so on page 4, you'll see the, you know, I actually give credit with BJ too. BJ helped me. He drove, I did all the data analysis. So BJ Matson, you know, it's 5 categories. Actually, you don't have any of that. Actually, believe it or not, it's hard to believe, but nothing in your routine is good. I mean, not saying you don't have good, you've got some excellent. So we've got no maintenance in general. Routine, good. Preventative, which is fair. Rehab, which is poor. Reconstruct, very poor. And this being a draft, yes, I'll have to pick up a little typo there with Weathersfield, that he zapped out of there. So the key is really to maintain the roads you've got in good shape. You know, and one of the ways, the most cost-effective ways of doing it, which I'll get into a little bit later, is a chip seal. You know, using 10% rubber. That it's, some of you may remember some of the old-fashioned chip seals, no rubber. No, it's a lot of that peeling off the side of the road. Now they've got 10%, they've got 20%. It does bond a lot better, providing you've got a road that's actually crowned correctly. And it does preserve it. And they can knock off 25,000 square yards roughly per day, which is quite a bit. the 10, incidentally, the 10% is something that I mentioned to them back in 2020. They had the traditional and the 20. I said, how about 10? You know, ever since then, since 2020 in Rockingham, they're using it with good success, and almost holding up as well as the 20%. You save $1 a square yard. So $1 a square yard, 1 mile is, you know, anywhere from 13,000 square yards to 15,000 square yards. Big difference. Page 5. This, I won't dive into the details of each one, but it does talk about the repair strategies and all maintenance, you know, bottom of page 4, routine maintenance, preventive rehab, reconstruction, defer. I'll just touch base on defer a little bit. So defer would be if you are gonna rebuild a road, maybe Quechee Road, but maybe some of the other ones, Coot Marsh or some of the other smaller roads, that's not affecting a lot of traffic, a lot of people. If you can get another 5 years out of it, in other words, if you can still plow it, you're not peeling up the pavement, you can get a little more time out of it, try to get a little more time out of it. It just, you know, a plan like this, you can educate the residents, the people, it's on the plan. Just people knowing it's on the plan does help. It's like, yes, you'll be there, but I did talk to BJ about that, and he said, no, they are starting to peel some of that pavement up on these roads in the north end. So that's why they're kind of on the list of let's knock them off before you start into your bigger projects. So you can kind of put them aside. Repair concepts, again, I'll mention that again. It's imperative to preserve the good roads, you know, first, before diving into all capital. The little box there from the University of New Hampshire, you know, use money as efficiently as possible. Every town wants to do that. Make repair decisions based on road surveys, which it does help if you're trying to sell something to the general public. It's not randomly, you're just picking this person's complaining, that person's complaining. You want to try to avoid that. And then again, the key in the middle there, avoid worst first methodology. And arbitrary road sections and prepare a multi-year road maintenance plan, which is what this is. So basically, you got kind of twofold. When we get to that, you'll see that you've got the annual maintenance plan. It's a guideline. Doesn't mean it's got to be stuck to 100%. Anything's a guide in order to determine how much funds really should be in the plan. And the capital plan, which, you know, it's hard to hold, any town to hold 100% of the capital plan. And that's a tool that Martin, John, and Select Board might look at every year, alter a little bit as needed, depending on our funding levels. Okay, page 6. There's all the different, all kinds of different types of methods, you know, from reclaim, chip seal, overlays, mills, shim and chip seal, shim and overlay, mill, shim, overlay, and reclaim, if that's, you know, the key about reclaim, if you're gonna reclaim a road, if it's one of those roads that's got some pretty good ruts in it, you reclaim it, that's basically the same. You've got either really, really bad drainage or you've got bad material under the road. And so chances are, and I started when I was in Rockingham, where I had 0 funds. That's what I was brought on due to the roads down there. And we tried some of the reclaim. Then you got to really be honest, the town, public works, be honest on how is it holding up, wasn't holding up. So it's okay, we got to revamp, we look at things, we started rebuilding. It took time, we've done a lot of work down there, a lot of roads, but it's in the long run, it's paying off. But what I'm saying, if you have big ruts, that you're just mixing that stuff up, you still get bad material underneath there. And it's all going to come back, you know. Might be a little bit later, but it will be back. And,
yeah, I think, Everett, I think both your report as well as the Pathways Engineering report stressed that very heavily.
right, okay.
Yeah.
And then, the other thing about, let me just dive into a little bit of the mill shim overlay. I've actually, for 5 summers, worked with them years ago. So I was on a milling machine, I was on a paving machine, and built roads for them. And then not happen just as a public works director, observing over time how things hold up. If you've got a bad road that's got a lot of cracks in it to start with, you just put an inch overlay on it. They will be back. You're gonna start seeing some of those cracks back the next year, especially with an inch. If you put down 2 inches on a road like that, yeah, you might buy a couple years. But if you actually milled it first, mill, shim, and overlay. So the milling, that'll, especially if you got ruts that are over ½ inch thick, that'll buy you some time. and actually none of that, but it gives you better bonding surface, because you milled it, then they're gonna asphalt, spray the asphalt on and repave it. And the state of Vermont, they have a different higher spec than a lot of towns, they would actually probably mill it, crack fill everything. It's really very expensive, but I've noticed even with a town, if you just mill it, a lot of the sweep, when they sweep, a lot of those grindings are actually going down in to those cracks, so then you do the shim and overlay, and it does hold back quite a bit, before those cracks come through, and when they do, they're not coming through as quick or as large, but if you had wide cracks, you overlaid it, those wide cracks are gonna be right back, because there's nothing filling it, there's nothing. So there's little things, over time, you observe this, you see it, and one of the things too, if you've got ruts that are greater than ½ inch especially, ½ inch or larger, yes, you definitely want to do the mill, shim, and overlay, or at least a mill and overlay. All this depends on how much time you need to buy out of a road. If you need to buy 5 years, yeah, overlay it. Okay, or shim it, probably shim it. If you need to buy 8, you might overlay it, knowing that all that stuff's coming back, but there's a lot of decision factors that come into it. It's a matter of cost per mile per year, that's what it comes down to. You don't want to overexpend anything more, and you'd like to have it so when you're ready to rebuild, it kind of looks like Quechee Hartland Road. You got your life out of it. And, let's see. Yeah, when you get down to reconstruction, that's one of the things where, getting like some pathways involved, or an engineer involved. It's good to take a look and redesign that, profile, especially Quechee Hartland Road. Yes, you'll have to have that designed, because you want to optimize, the vertical profiles, and then raise it as much as you can. I remember I did watch a couple of interviews, or the past videos, you mentioned that. You can raise it. Yes, that's the cheapest way. Anytime you can raise a road, better off, but then you gotta look at vertical curves, you gotta look at driveways, properties. So what's it doing? Can't always do it. Let's see, page 7. Yeah, we got some of that's a little cheaper, is not always better. Annual maintenance budget. What I've got in there is $350. That's what you've had, and it's been a pretty good budget. The town, it's been enough budget to keep things the way they should be.
So, just go, is that what we have? I feel like it was less.
It was less, we just moved it to 300 this year.
300
26. What's that?
It's 300 flat this year.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct,
No,
yeah.
it's not 350?
It's not 350,
Oh.
yeah. No, sorry,
I think BJ was hoping.
yeah.
So I could retweak this and use it.
Yeah, yeah, 300 flat.
300, okay, that's good to know. Okay. 300,000, okay. And I've got in there, 25,000, actually, the bullet down below, it says 300, it'll be 350, or 300 per year. Annual increases of 25,000, not 20. So if you look at my capital plan that I've got, and that's just a start. You're gonna be a lot more than that when you start talking some larger capital expenditures.
And it's been a projection that we've been doing for some years now. We realize that the budget for roads have been grossly under budgeted. So we've been slowly able to keep it up.
Oh, I commend the board that you've been looking at it right.
Yeah.
You never have enough.
Correct.
And so now at the bottom, page 7, reconstruction status. So basically, the roads that I identified as reconstruction, which are on the last, I think John printed out the map here.
Yeah.
And it's basically the pink, they do stand out, the pink ones for reconstruction, pretty much sure.
Yeah.
So that's a good example of, this is in the north end. You guys are familiar with some of these roads?
Yes.
And that's actually got a picture in there, I think. Yeah, on page 13, there's a picture of it. That's an easy road to elevate. And there's not a lot of traffic. So let's not rip it all up, spend $1 million or $1.5 million a mile, or even $2 million a mile. You don't need to. Remove the pavement. I mean, scrape up the pavement. There's probably not enough pavement to bring in a reclaimer, because it's so short. And some of these other roads the same way. Hire someone to pull it up, even in town if they've got an excavator. Just, some of the crews love that stuff. It's a project, the town crew. If you do something like that, even put some gravel down. Maybe they don't find grade, but they do the prep work ahead of time. Have someone come in there and, have it staked out, rough grade. Some grade, make sure it's good and back it. 2.5 inch base, 1.5 top, you can walk away from this road until it needs some type of preservation, you know, on Marsh Road. Gilson Road, that one's got some tricky stuff toward the top, typically. It's got a
Robert,
lot
I
of
think
slope.
if we were to jump, I'll just make a comment that your spreadsheets for the inventory, I think lay all of that out.
Yeah.
Really clearly, I think it's giving us that plan that we hope to have of, separate from the Quechee Road, you know, how do we address the other paving in town?
Yeah, want to jump right to the spreadsheet? And kind of
Yeah,
wrap it
sure,
up there, so-
yep.
I don't think we need to really look at the map. Let's go with the more detailed spreadsheet, not the capital. This is the annual maintenance. This one here. It might be the second to last.
Your spreadsheets are double-sided, so.
Oh, here you go.
Do you want?
No, I got
So what I did to prepare this is basically a plan that I kind of put together, and you don't see many road evaluations actually diving into this kind of detail. You know, it's a little more than someone would normally, an engineer would normally do, but I like it because it allows a tool for the town. Yes, maybe they could change it, but then it says, okay, do I have enough money? So unless you really look at it and plug it in. So basically, I set up a spreadsheet that's, you know, when you see a toggle of 1, for example, that means yes, crack one. The chips, you'll see a bunch of them under category R, of the column R. The 1 means, okay, multiply length times width divided by 9 times the square yards. So it puts in a price. So all that does, all these numbers I put in there are additive. For example, if you look at Marsh Road, you'll see a 4 and 4. And I've got add gravel and grade. There's 10, you know, I looked at it, how long, about 10 grand probably. So it's not a lot of expense, it's 24,000 versus a complete rebuild, you're probably talking, you know, over 100,000. For 3 houses, you know, I didn't think it was really worth it at this point. You'll buy a lot of time out of it. And same thing with, and gravel grade, Rockwood Street, same thing here, same side of the road, for on the east side of Route 5. You can raise that up. When you get to Wood Circle, that's the one that kind of loops, it's near in that area, that's kind of opposite the mill. I think it might be Mill Street or one of those ones up there. It's in that same area, loops back, comes back in to Route 5. That one's got some issues. I would recommend some test pits, see what you got for gravel. Possibly got enough, if that's the case, for gravel, that is. You know, because that whole area might be gravel and natural gravel anyway, I don't know that. You're along Route 5, which is along the river. So it could be as simple as removing the pavement, adding a little gravel, shading it, getting rid of puddles and then 4 inches of pavement. So that may drop down in price just by doing test pits. So instead of 174, it might be 100,000, or it might be even 50,000. And just by checking it out. And actually, there is a final report, I'll catch this, but you'll see over to the right, says reconstruct $800,000. Yeah, that's under Marsh Road, that was under the wrong category. That should be under Gilson. That'll be moved down. It'll be 800 to 1.2, and that, you know, there's some issues on the slope way up there as well. So that, there's some unit prices down below there on the left. The ones that are used, those are the ones that are used in the calculations as you punch in the numbers of what you're gonna do. So it's a tool. Doesn't mean, like I said, the town's gonna stick with it, you know, but gives you an idea, yes, the $200,000 that I'm recommending is enough to maintain what you got. Here's what you can do with it. And then if we jump to the capital, then we can wrap it up and ask questions at the end. You know, this is what I've got in here, you know, for the summer, Wood Circle. That could be bounced out a little bit if it had to, and then bring in, you know, to analyze that first, maybe bring forward, because you don't have enough money in there anyway. You know? It's not the 350, it's 300. Might have to bring forward Marsh and Rockwood, and then bounce out Wood Circle. And it gives you a little time to do some test bits, and then see if you can do it a little bit, you know, maybe for 100,000 or less. And then I just do arbitrary number in here, feature on road number 5. Okay, is 2.575 financing at 4% over 10 years. Just those I know are gonna change. You know, this is a lot of work to do between now and that time. One of the things that we just talked a little bit about, just, you know, a little bit more about the chip seal. It took me a while to believe, really.
We may not be able to dive into, we have a lot of
Okay,
going on, and I know you'll be working with John and BJ. I just had a couple of summary questions, and I'm sure there's one or two others you'll be asking. One of the things that I'm really struck with is the thoroughness and using the latest thinking about roads that's emerged from the state of Maine and we're embracing here in Vermont. But if we follow this, we've exhausted the budget on the paved sections of Hartland, whereas the 65 miles or so of back roads aren't being addressed. So I think as we look at the $300,000, you know, there's a balancing act there between our existing and increasing hard pack coverage and ditching and so on and so forth. So I just, when I originally looked at this, I said, oh, great, we can tackle all this, look at that. And then I realized,
Is this budget a paving budget?
It's a paving, the $300,000 is a paving budget.
It is a paving budget, so there is still.
We still, yeah, exactly.
okay, well, thank you for that correction. I'm feeling a little bit better now.
Right, and we spend $300,000 a year, or will,
Okay.
on paving.
The other piece, which we started to do a little bit last year, is the difference between cold patching and using hot asphalt from a hot box. As you laid out that we should be looking to preserve the roads that are in good shape, I'm wondering if we should invest in the 20 or 30,000 for a hot box, which would maybe fit the pattern that you're laying out. But let's seal the cracks properly right. So I'm just throwing that out there as something that we should be thinking about as we move forward. Of course, we're thinking about that now after the budget is settled.
we might have a VLCT grant that might help fund, they do come through once in a while.
Yeah.
A small hot box maybe to help, you know, some of those boxes will help heat. You could recycle older asphalt that they recycled, put it in there the night before, keep it running, and they go reuse it. Might be in the fall and the spring before the hot mix. Better off a hot mix anyway, but even with that box, they want to make sure they get a big enough one though, so that they're at the plant, they're not spilling on top of the machine. You want to make sure,
Running back and forth every time.
you want to make sure it gets, or someone trained to really at least learn to make sure it's inside the box. I've heard horror stories of two smaller ones that, you know, could be tough.
And I want to restate that your work with the capital plan is very good, because we, in the months ahead, will be addressing a capital plan for all the projects that we have.
Yeah.
That's good. Any other questions or observations for Patrick?
No, but it's, look, John, it sounds like you've got enough information, right, to prioritize how you want to use the paving budget over the next couple of years.
Correct. So to me, that's the key takeaway here, is that now we have an assessment of all the paved roads. Yes, it's a snapshot in time, but it lays out a plan for moving forward. So we know that with our current paving budget, you know, here's how we should approach Evarts, McCabe, you know, Wood Circle, you know, as opposed to the work, you know, whatever mentioned, like not doing necessarily the worst first approach.
Alphabetical order.
Right. We have a plan now in place, and like Everett mentioned, right, we may deviate from it from time to time, but at least it lays out the framework that we should follow. So I appreciate it.
And one of the key things we want to try to do is, you know, we've got next year a lot of stuff in North End, so the less jumping around that you do for a contractor, paving contractor, or chip seal, whoever. Well, chip seal's not as bad, but especially paving, the better optimal cost we get. So try not to do too much of that jumping.
Is there ever a time where the paving is such that you just put it back to gravel and don't repave?
Yeah, probably if you have 300 or 400 cars per day, vehicles per day or less. Anything that, I did watch that, I don't, Quechee Hartland Road will not work for that.
No,
Way too much traffic going through there. They're gonna be out there every day grading. And it's no matter how good a gravel, get a really good clean gravel, it's not gonna want to bind and stick together as well. And then you get too many lines in there, in the spring, mud season, it's gonna it'll start working. Even though, yes, some of the dense grade is really good stuff, you probably have 1.5-inch dense grade, that's sharper stuff, really good gravel, better for paving on than it is for driving on the vehicles. And you have rubber bicycles, motorcycles. Bicycles, right? Yeah, or you on a motorcycle?
No, bicycle, pedal,
Yeah, that's right.
pedal bike. So you said 300 to 400 cars per day would be reasonable for
Yeah,
gravel roads? Interesting.
Yeah.
That seems like a lot.
It seems like a lot, but I wonder.
Well, 200 to 400 probably.
We could get a traffic counter, essentially, because some of these smaller roads, especially up in North Hartland,
Are they through roads or some of them just neighborhood?
because most of them are just neighborhood roads. Wood Circle is essentially just a semicircle road.
Yeah, so maybe talking 24 cars a day.
Right, yeah, significantly less than 200.
But you have to, there's more to it than that. You can talk to BJ as well, because if you've got one section of gravel roadway up there, that means you need some sand coming up there instead of salt. So really, I would recommend what you've got in here for pavement, they're short, they're not very expensive. Stay with pavement, even though, yes, you probably could do without, but for maintenance.
Just management.
Yeah, understood. Thank you, Reverend, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think it's very good.
Yeah,
So if you want, I'll talk to John about whether you want to wrap it up or wait a while.
Yep.
You can wait until you really want to nail down, Quechee Hartland Road on whatever you do there.
Well, I think they're mutually distinct, right? So we've got to run this program, right? So it needs to be final, you need to feel like you own it and you can run with it. And then the Quechee Road is a much larger discussion.
At some point, they converge into
Money-wise,
a paved road plan.
And I can provide you that spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I'm basically just gonna plug it in. Yeah.
Great.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Right, nice.
Thanks.
Okay, our next item is a request to reclassify Lull Farm Lane. Theo, yes, please. At the last meeting, we took a look at your memo and the two road charts that you have, and I think we're just looking for help explain why you're looking to do this, or have the town do it, and we may need to table it and have a site visit once we can get outside to walk it. But
A couple bullet points from my position.
Yeah.
It would be really useful if enough of you could do a site visit to get some idea of what is Lull Farm Lane, especially at the terminus, that last 385 feet.
yeah,
And secondly, I'm involved in this only because about 2 years ago, we attempted to purchase a little wedge of land on the south side of Lull Farm Lane to the very end, because we are a butter with our neighbor and got an agreement to do so. But in the course of survey work, we found that the wedge of land that we were hoping to buy from her was not a natural subdivision. It wasn't a separate parcel under state statute. So subdivision would have been entirely possible under state rules of water conservation and all that sort of stuff. I would have funded that. But the killer was the prior owner of 25 Lull Farm Lane, that's now Margot Hickey's place. Michael Townsend had a well drilled in the middle of the town right away. So there is a wellhead sitting in the middle of what would be a vehicle right of way. So when we discovered this, basically I discovered a point of angst or upset with my elderly neighbor And that's why I'm here, is because once I created the dragon, I'd like to slay it. And I cannot in good conscience say that the last 385 feet of Lull Farm Lane has never seen a motor vehicle traffic, because during the era that Clyde Richardson owned that property, he did own a truck. And I wasn't alive in those days, but it's possible he drove a truck down. But his primary means of agricultural enterprise were 2 horses. And so in short, Lull Farm Lanes extended from the homestead at 24 Lull Farm Lane to the end of the barnyard of then Clyde Richardson's farm. And he sold the property to the tenant at that time and stopped farming. The Lull Farm Lane was a town road that went to the barnyard, but he sold the building of the barn in this little plot. So the road ends, there was a barn, and there's the property line on the far side. And unfortunately, my surveyor found that it was 49 feet from the wall of the barn to the property line. So the public right-of-way didn't actually extend, or couldn't even be stretched to the property line. So that's why my little wedge was not a subdivision. So, all that said, the public road leading from Margot's dooryard, where the town car turns around, a public right-of-way, is impassable because it hasn't been used for roughly 70 years. And so the trees have grown up in it. It's a leveled plot down to the old barnyard, but it's nothing you could put a truck through or a bicycle even at this point. So I'd like the last bit of the public right-of-way remain a public right-of-way, because my generation, or maybe the next, someone would like to ride a bicycle down through there or walk down through there. But to avoid motor vehicles going down would be useful to my neighbor, not having to move her well.
You said there's a wellhead in the middle.
There's a wellhead smack in the middle.
So do cars go down there?
No.
Then what's
no.
the need to change it if it's not used anyway?
Because if I cut a lot of trails for purposes of non-motorized transport. I mean, I've been one of the principals of Trail Builder for Hartland Trails all these years. And if I were to make a cleared path down the public road, public road, down to what is now just an open dooryard or open lawn of the adjacent neighbors, then it's entirely reasonable to expect that the neighborhood boys would take their dirt bikes or their snowmobiles or what right past Margot's house. And that's not my intent, to entice vehicular traffic right past her house, which has never had vehicular traffic in the experience of the last 4 landowners, the last 7 years.
Do we know if it's class 3 or class 4?
It's a class 4 road. I think the distinction.
It's not town maintained anyway.
It's not town maintained. The distinction is that this request would make it a non-motorized legal trail. So just like it was explained. That's the important distinction here.
Right.
Yeah. So if it was designated a non-motorized legal trail by the town, then I would feel safe in cutting a bicycle path for the kids on the lower road to come up onto Lull Farm Lane and do the loop and then come down our new road, a new path down 9 Merritt and down to the village, and they would never have to go on the highway. But until then, I don't want, because every day when I'm out about my house, I can hear the snowmobiles or the mountain bike, or the motorized bikes moving around down the road. So, and that's not what I signed up for when I first approached my property.
But they're not on Lull Farm Lane.
They are not on Lull Farm Lane because there's this basically obstruction for 300+ feet on the public roads.
So I think it's reasonable to walk, and I'm just looking at the tax map, and you know, the tax map may or may not be, you know, visually perfect.
Yep.
But it does look like Low Farm Lane, you know, the terminus of it abuts two other properties on other roads. So I think it would be good to hear from those landowners as well.
The survey we have that I included with this thing, is on record with the town, and Mr. Farnsworth was adamant that the public right-of-way did not extend to the properties on the east. There is a stone wall at 90 degrees at the end of what is the end of the public right-of-way. So that.
Yeah, I don't doubt it, I'm just going by what I see on the tax.
Yeah, so it's, and that's basically, for Margot, the current landowner, she got snookered by, you know, the previous owner having drilled a well in the middle of the public road. If that well wasn't there, then
Tom,
it would have been a problem.
what are there rules about a wellhead that has been drilled that's not active? Does it have to be filled by state statute?
I don't know. Well, I mean, there's rules about public right of way. If you wreck something in a public right of way, the town's obligation is to take it down.
Yeah.
Is that Margot's water supply?
It is Margot's water.
It's an active well.
Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't get that part.
To be clear,
that was his point.
Yeah, it's an active well, yeah.
Okay.
We can't do anything with it.
Alright.
So,
Well, so I've worked on construction sites where a well has been inactive.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to fill it
Yeah.
because contaminants get into the ground, into the water supply.
And then you recap it,
And they recap it.
or they cement over it.
try and recap it, yeah, but in this instance, that's.
In this instance, it's being used.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
So
it's a debacle.
it is a debacle.
It is.
Because under this state, we have an aggressive possession
I'm also,
principle that
yeah.
somebody takes some right of yours or your property away and you don't object. And the town, like it or not, never objected to that
so
road.
it's been there for a period of time. Is there some kind of a time limit of it being on the wrong property or the wrong space that it gets to be utilized anyway? Well, you probably would know that. wouldn't you?
I'm not a
I don't even want to go there.
I don't know.
It's like a whole issue unto
Yeah.
itself, even if it was a legal trail. it's
Right.
It's a legal
Town
term,
right
who
away.
cares?
And then the last question was, if the well wasn't there and the road could continue on, would it actually make a full loop onto the road that's below your place?
No.
So that it would be a loop road?
Yeah, it
And so it
won't.
wouldn't be a through road
It would
ever?
be a through road anyway. So you're gonna, and it's hard enough to turn around in Margot's yard, let alone at that old barnyard down, what was the old barnyard down below. And so again, a site visit would be really useful. You see that there's a little space there about a quarter the size of this room.
Well, this road didn't originally continue on, come down on Route 5 on the corner.
No, that was Margot's place is what was Timothy Lull's hired man's farmhouse.
Yeah.
And it was just a hired man's house. And the main farm was what we used to know as the, Mr. Pacho owns it that now. Constables, not Eastman? Eastman,
Oh,
yeah,
Eastman.
Eastman's farm,
Yeah.
right, that was the original Lull farm.
I'm gonna suggest that we table this for now, and when we get up there and walk it,
Yep.
that we would just visually be able to see exactly, the beauty of this well in the middle of the road and other things, and be able to make a better decision. I think you've laid things out. Thank you for clarifying
yeah.
tonight.
Very clear.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
yeah, so,
Basically, you want to change it from class 4 to legal trail.
legal trail,
That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
basically the town run away. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thanks.
So we'll keep that on the agenda. Thank you. Probably after town meeting, maybe March, second meeting in March, potentially
After
April.
mud season.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of the snow.
You got those.
So we'll keep, that'll go on the list of future agenda items.
Hopefully I'm saying this, but let's deal with the Three Corners Market liquor license request. This
so
is pretty straightforward.
it is, there was some confusion from the Three Corners Market, because if you recall, you reapproved a liquor license for Three Corners Market only a few months ago. There was some confusion on their end about when they needed to submit their paperwork by. There had been this is all, my understanding is that there was a delay from COVID. There had been given a grace period, but the original dates were still set. They got behind, everything got confused. The short answer is they need to have this approved at this meeting before their liquor license expires. And they're no longer able to sell beer and wine.
So second class is beer and wine.
Beer and wine.
So I move approval.
I'll second it. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Okay, motion passes.
Great.
Our signatures.
No signatures required.
Okay.
It's simply a click of the button.
Okay.
So, but if they need it, we'll have the minutes.
Do we get like a free creamy out of this?
I don't think we do.
For doing this in
No.
an expedition?
No. I'm sorry.
Free beer out of it.
You just shut down.
I'm sorry, that is not happening.
Okay, the next item is the proposed tower that ITW is talking about. What I would like to do this evening is first ask John to review the timeline as we know it and any updates that have happened. And then I would look for public feedback. The expectation at this point is we will use that feedback in conjunction with whatever the planning commission, I haven't seen it yet, I'm still waiting for it. And then we'll submit questions to ITW. And we would ask them to basically have responses when we have the townwide meeting coming up in February. So that's roughly what I would like to do this evening. And John, can you start by just going through the timeline?
Sure.
There's a lot of different.
There was a lot of dates being thrown about. So, short and sweet, ITW, through their attorney, submitted what's called a 60-day letter, a 60-day notice, on November 15th, 2024. Essentially saying, here's our proposal, you have 60 days to review it, we will not submit an actual application until 60 days has elapsed. In that time, through communications that I had with ITW's local representative, we set this public meeting, joint planning commission and select board public meeting, which has been set for February 18th. I also have communication from ITW that they will not submit an application until after that date, after that meeting. So the 60-day letter would have been the middle of January. We have communication from them that says we will not submit until after this meeting in the middle of February. This is the...
Just a clarification, when you say application submitted to us for our review?
To the PUC.
To the PUC.
Correct.
Public Utility
Commission, correct.
Or board, or commission.
So at this point, we are in this pre-application phase that, in essence, essentially what amounts to a discussion phase. Like, we can provide feedback to ITW, here's questions that we'd like to work through prior to the application. Then this is more discussion. After that application is submitted, it becomes a much more formal process. And a time clock starts.
So public comments to the PUC is closed as of January 15th. Now our feedback would go fully to ITW.
No, there was no January 15th
I thought it
deadline.
was a 60-day.
That January 15th date was being thrown about a lot, but
That's not
That is not true.
That's not true.
That is not true.
according to,
Because we're abutters and we received a letter and we were told we needed to respond by January 15th or our voice didn't
The
matter.
town was also
Asked to respond.
right, so that's, from our attorney, that is not accurate.
Well,
And the 60-day letter from MSK, the attorney, the ITW's attorney, lays this out. This is, there's no January 15th deadline. This is that public discussion period. We are able to submit comments to ITW in that discussion phase.
But what about PUC? I
So we can-
thought the 60-day was for comments directly to PUC.
You can file comments on the PUC website.
You can file comments on the PUC website. This is the intention, my understanding of the intention of this 60-day notice is to have this back and forth conversation, to have these issues clarified before the application is submitted.
Right.
Because there could be revisions to the design, to the proposal prior to an application.
Yeah, I guess the part that's clouding in my brain is just, if we have comments to submit now, do they only go to ITW, or is PUC still open for comments?
Or go to both.
Right. They could go to both. They could go to both. I think now is the time, again, for that back and forth conversation, as opposed to the more formal process after the application is submitted.
So what they're trying to do, if possible, is to try to gather as many comments as possible so the applicant can potentially change their application or whatever, so that the hearing itself does not become really contentious. And so that's what they're really trying to do. I don't understand though is we're commenting on an incomplete application.
Right.
We don't have a full application.
We don't have a full.
And you're saying is right after the public hearing, I think there's another warning period after they submit an application for us to respond to what is written in the application.
Correct. There's a 30-day window
After
the application.
So you were making that because you
Yeah.
said was after the public hearing, they're going to submit the application. They have to wait 30 days.
We have 30 days to respond to their
To the
application.
application, that's
Right, and that's a more formal process, right? Here we're in discussion, that is a more formal, we are submitting comments as the town or abutters, or whomever it may be.
Okay.
Okay, is that,
So I would
can
like.
I ask you, I don't know who you are.
What's that?
I just need to know your name.
Oh, I'm David Lyman. I am an abutting landowner to the proposed tower.
Yes.
We are on 253 Town Farm Hill.
Thank you.
So one other group that is important that, I mean, as a town, we have rights to utilize the Two Rivers Regional Commission, right? And so they have a board meeting tomorrow. So I think it's valuable for the group here to really, I mean, I really urge you to reconsider like waiting, because why would we wait, sort of defer to ITW, which isn't, they're just trying to make money off this. So there's somebody at ITW who's sitting there trying to figure out like on their ROI, it's like, all right, how many people objected to this? Is this gonna be worth it for us to pursue this or not, right? And so, I think the bottom line is if it doesn't comply with the town plan, like on VIII, that the planning commission voted to object that it does not conform to the town plan, that we should also, as a town, enlist the Two Rivers help, but that will only happen if you collectively, also voice your that it does not conform to the plan. Because, and then really enlist their help. So we're gonna go to the meeting tomorrow at the Two Rivers also, but they won't really do anything unless they're asked for help.
So just to clarify, we have been in discussion with Two Rivers.
Oh, you have?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, believe me, we've been, we hear, what needs to be done, and we are doing our homework and working with legal counsel as well. So, yeah, so I would,
But one other thing I would like to clarify, John, is that, I think when, I'm not an expert on tower, I've become sort of, all of a sudden, when this happens, somebody says, I'm gonna build a 173-foot tower next, like, right there next to our house. I'm like, how did this happen, right? So then you go down this rabbit hole, and I really appreciate, by the way, I really appreciate all that you guys do. This is a really difficult job. I mean, just talking through all the issues that you face every day. So I just want to thank you for everything that you're doing here. And so, we've had to become experts at this tower 248A and reading all the guidelines and stuff. And I would say that they, a company like ITW probably goes around, sends letters to all these different people in places where they think that they can put a tower, and they're just throwing proposals out everywhere and seeing what they can do, right? And so, I mean, this is all just a guess, but the only reason they're doing this is because they can make money, right? And so why would we defer to them to wait till the 18th? And just because they want to meet with all of us, they have proposed to put this 173-foot tower there. So that is the fact. So they've already filed this. So
they have not filed the final document.
No, they haven't filed.
But they've done a lot of pre-work.
Of course. If they had no objection, they would just go build this, right? So this is where I think we're missing, there's like a missing link here where, okay, well, maybe they'll change the plan, but what if they don't? And we've missed this window of opportunity to say, hey, this does not conform to the town plan as it is. And
we still have legal.
And we have lots of questions. I think what your approach is great. It's yeah, we have lots of questions. But this, as it is right now, it doesn't conform.
Right, I don't disagree, and I think the approach is the letter that the planning commission drafted in last week, at the end of last week, questions that may arise out of this conversation, saying, here's our questions, one of which could be, show us how it conforms with the current town plan in Hartland, right? And putting it to them to show us why it.
But it doesn't, so why do we need them to show it? They've given the schematics to us.
Yeah, we have everything.
But it doesn't, I don't know, I mean,
it's not
it's very, their plan that they put forward was super detailed. I mean, you all, I'm sure received it, but it's very detailed.
It is.
It's not like it was like the crayons book, it was pretty specific, so.
I just want to make a couple comments.
Yeah, sure.
David, and I met some of you, I just want to say thank you too, because I've emailed all of you.
And Vicki, please identify
My
yourself
name
for
is
the,
Victoria.
you're on
Buechner.
camera.
I am, this is great. Victoria Buechner, 306 Weed Road, which is the far end, the Town Farm Hill end of Weed Road. And our property, the 24 acres that we subdivided with my brother, 12 and 12, we sit on the back half, and the tower, our house that we just built and moved into last year, sits about 200 feet from the line, the property line. The tower proposal is 500 feet from that. We will be 700 feet from this 80 by 80 construction, 80 by 80, 8-foot fence, 173-foot tower. And I can't even talk about it, honestly, without getting very disturbed. Because we moved to Hartland out of Hartford, Quechee, to be in the beautiful setting that we purchased this land. And the fact that this doesn't conform to the town plan as stated currently, and that I'm having to beg you to please take a position is really disturbing. And I agree with John, I hear what you're saying, John, I haven't filed an application, but we have attorneys, and we have looked at every application they filed, and the only time they walked away is when the town has taken a position, and the regional committee has taken a position. And so this could turn into a huge battle, and we have a small window of opportunity now to really make our voices heard And I'm just asking you, please support the planning committee, help us with the
Vicki,
regional commission.
we are
and
not
let's make a
saying we're not
statement.
going, we are not saying we're not going to take a position. I think, I hope that's clear to you. I mean, we as a select board, what's the proper term once the 30-day period is, we represent the town.
We're
so
essentially like
we
an
have-
interested party status, yeah.
like you as a land abutter, we would have the right to do that. So that is, I want to make sure you know we're going to take a position, and really what I'm hearing is you would like it now, and we're saying we would like to do it after we see the actual application process.
There might be middle ground. Right, there might be some middle ground. Maybe we just make a simple statement in writing, and we say that we reviewed the planning commission's conclusion that this does not conform to the town plan, and we agree with that conclusion. Simple as that. And then we've got the interim step done. We have, once we get more data, we have discussions, and there's if it goes to a formal application and comment period, we can write up more detailed,
Yeah, I think that, so, I don't think it's in conformance with the town plan.
Thank you.
And so I think that I would advocate that we do take a position. But I'm just starting to see some of these, like, these letters and so on. So why don't we try to read these things through, and at our next meeting, come up and have a discussion and then submit something prior to the formal meeting. And then,
For example, I just learned Friday afternoon that the planning commission had already written something at the end of October. We never saw that. Maybe you have it, I don't. So there's documents out there, and I think we, as a town, want to stay in sync with the planning commission and not look like we're idiots.
John, can I ask a question? So the planning commission did write a document,
They did, that's right here, dated January 14th.
and you've seen that? You have not seen the document?
This is the outcome of this is what was submitted by the planning commission in response to the meeting. This is the list of questions that was generated.
And John?
Yes.
Before you read that, can I ask another question, please?
Yes.
So, the planning commission is appointed by the select board. The positions are appointed by the select board.
Correct.
So, it's almost duplication if we say that we disagree with the tower when the town planning commission has already stated that. Although we could support them in their decision, and that wouldn't be duplication, that would just be agreement.
I think that's what you're saying.
so,
Yeah.
so what will
Yeah,
end up
I've read the document.
happening here is we will need to decide to hire an attorney representing the interest of the town. It's very formal process.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then we could just develop our positions on this. That includes both the planning commissions and ours.
Right.
And then they do the submission. But I think it's great that the planning commission did this. It's gonna go a little bit better if it's done by an attorney.
So
So I also wanna say, there was a project, I think was in Swanton, Vermont, and they're taking them to the Supreme Court. Enosburg, up north. Somewhere up north.
Who's taking your?
ITW is not, it doesn't mess around. So, and, because the courts disagreed with them, and then they're appealing.
The courts have disagreed with them a number of times, in favor of the, local town commissions, and so.
We call these spec, so I work for a regional planning commission. We call these spec towers,
Yeah,
and they're usually very difficult to permit.
yeah.
So Tom, based on what you said, for our next meeting, why don't we have John draft our statement in support of the planning commission with help from the lawyer, we approve it,
I
the
don't think
lawyer
we need a
says it.
lawyer right now. I think for right now, it's just something we're gonna send to ITW
Okay,
and
We've been, I've asked John to be in sync with Mr. Marlowe, our lawyer.
Yeah.
On that part, so that
Yeah.
we're doing this work.
but, you know, if we're gonna come to the next meeting, we ought to have something to look at.
No, that's what we have.
versus
But I would like to see
debate.
all the documents. I just, and there was something today from Kevin.
Yeah.
Ron
Yeah, Mr. Reed, yeah.
Reed, and I didn't really have a chance to read through it all yet, but it might be good
Sorry, hold on
to
one
read your.
And we
Get
did
that
cut
as
John
well.
off. John was about to explain something and I cut him off.
No,
And I
that's fine.
apologize for that, but I'd like to hear the rest of what you had to say.
So two things. One, I think what I'm hearing is that drafting a letter so you all can review it at the next meeting. I will say, the attorney that we typically use has not gone through this process before. So the choice is,
Burlington firm.
so we could, there are firms that we could go with that have experience with the PUC in this process, but we should start that process now as opposed to waiting until, the middle of February.
Yeah.
So I would like the board the board's approval to proceed with a different law firm.
I
Probably under-
think since you have a legal budget and you're the operational budget manager, you can do that.
Yes, but I want to be clear that this will be a different proceeding than we normally go through with
Right.
our attorney.
I would try our firm in Burlington.
Yeah.
And ask them for a reference if that's not
Right,
true.
and that's what we've gotten from Jim Barlow as well.
Okay.
And there was some formal timeline that you were starting to work on, and I didn't get it. Like, there's a meeting on the 18th,
There's a meeting on the 18th.
and the planning commission has submitted this letter that we
The planning commission
to that company?
The planning commission submitted this letter, much like you folks have submitted a letter through your attorney. It's very similar, kind of outlining how the proposal does not currently conform with the town plan.
It was sent.
It was sent. This was
It was
submitted.
sent.
And I think it's key, in my opinion, that the planning commission and the select board are two different bodies, but we need to speak with a unified voice a semi-unified voice in this project.
Absolutely.
And having a single point of contact at this point would probably be beneficial.
So we have another issue related to this, which we should probably move on today. And that is that our town plan expires in May.
Correct.
So if the application goes in June 1st, there is no time.
Correct. So we will,
Will you address that?
I will address that. I will address that question
Yeah,
soon.
we're very aware of that, Jim, and we're taking, we have an agreement with the planning commission of how we're going to solve that. John will address that in his update.
Okay,
Correct.
Okay. So what are we missing? I know, for example, I asked for a list of the questions, and I haven't seen those questions.
So the questions that were developed by the planning commission are in this document that was transmitted to, I believe you all got a copy of it. If not, I can make sure you get a copy of this letter from the planning commission that was submitted.
So, is anybody looking at natural resource issues, deer yards?
Not currently. I have not.
Because we need more than just this.
So I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the letter that came from the abutting property owners, your letter does address some of the natural habitat concerns. Their attorney did that. We have not looked at that.
I didn't see that in Mr. Ryan's letter.
Mr. Ruth.
I'm not gonna speak on behalf of this, but I don't think the natural resources are the biggest issue. I think the biggest issue are really the scope of it, the size of the platform that they're gonna need.
But you need ammunition, if you will.
Well,
To rely
absolutely,
solely
absolutely.
on a paragraph in your town plan
Mhm.
sometimes
Yeah.
isn't good enough. But if you say, well, this is also, there's some type of habitat, or there's wetlands, and I'm kind of familiar with that area. I don't see that, but I think we still should do.
Our well is like right next to where.
See, and that's against that kind of stuff. You need that kind of
But
stuff.
they say that they're gonna mitigate this, right? So they say that they will
Right.
do
Right.
the least amount of harm to the environment when they build a road.
If they were,
But,
Sure, you have.
I have a quick, basic question. I'm going back to our building ordinance. If property is there's a resident there, right? So if they're gonna do something, make changes to their property, doesn't it have to come into the building ordinance? It still has to come in, we don't have one anymore, but it still has to come into the office somewhere to get approved. How did that step get missed?
Because there's no application yet.
Doesn't it have to come in through here first?
I
And
guess-
it doesn't get approved because it doesn't meet a planning commission.
Well,
It's
as
like
John said, this
basic.
is all hypothetical at this point.
Right.
And it would, if it came in, if there, hypothetically speaking, if there was a construction permit application, it would get approved.
Why?
Because we don't have any, we
Because
don't have an ordinance.
there's no regulatory tools in place to say no. The town plan is a regulatory tool in very few and specific proceedings, this being one of them. When somebody wants to build a garden shed in their backyard, we don't review it against the town plan.
But this is an incident where it should be compared to the town plan. I mean, there are instances that should be, you should refer to the town plan, right?
In this,
What's
We are.
yeah, it has been referred to the town
It
plan,
is.
and
Right, they
it
are.
doesn't meet the town plan, and the planning commission has sent a letter to this company indicating that.
Right, so end of story,
So there's
done
no,
deal.
well, it should be,
Yes.
however,
No.
with money, it should be the end of
Let me take care of it.
Yeah, so here's the question, was the property there in current use?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It is.
And if you sell a piece of land or you move a piece of property out of current use, you have to pay back all your back taxes on that property.
It's not all your back.
It's not,
No,
all your
there's a
back taxes are
penalty.
considered.
There's a
Is there a
penalty.
penalty?
Penalty for
But
taking it out of
what possible value does current
We
use
have,
have for our
we have,
state at this
so
point in
anything,
time?
you know,
We have a former
expert.
lister who can
Yeah,
answer
What
that.
possible value does that have for our state?
Yeah, expert input here. Stop it.
I guess that might be opinion-based. My answer would be to keep certain land in some kind of conservation in Vermont.
It would be great if it was actually utilized for what it was meant to be utilized for. Instead, people with money use it for a tax break, and that's the only reason it's used now. The farmers, I mean, what, we don't have any farmers.
The second answer is that when land is pulled out of current use, that piece of land gets its own valuation that comes through to the lister's office. So if you pull a piece of land out, they say, what's the fair market value of this standalone parcel? That gets sent to the landowner and to the state, and once they I don't remember exactly that part, but it's a 10% penalty.
That's not much.
10% for some number of tax
Ten
years.
percent of the assessed value.
It's not a, it's not a.
It's not a deal breaker for
The whole, the objective was to keep people from developing on the land that was in current use.
For a company like this, it's the
Other-
smallest line item in their budget.
Are there other questions?
We answer your
No,
question?
I called the current use office just to ask them, because I know that our neighbor has the land in current use, and the current use, now, their response was, well, as long as they're not cutting down any, clear cutting any trees, we're fine. Like, they can do whatever they want. I was like, wow, okay. That was their response.
Unbelievable.
Well,
Unbelievable.
yeah, let's not go down the current.
Yeah.
It's a really bad path.
Let's adjourn to Stone Hollow.
So to be,
I
just
think we
to,
have an
Yeah,
action.
clarified.
right, what is the expected action? I just want to summarize this discussion.
I think our expected action is we have a letter that's been reviewed by a lawyer that we can approve next meeting to state our position, which I think is to state that we agree with the planning commission's assessment.
Okay.
Do you guys
In
agree with that?
addition,
Yeah.
that's the outcome. We need to review any correspondence that's been floating around from the planning commission, including this mysterious October letter, so that we understand what's.
So if you go to the
good issue
PUC
you got here.
website, you'll see all the filings,
Okay.
and you can download it.
Yeah, just like the Act
You
250.
can see
Yeah,
that.
just like.
So just
But I
like one
think-
clarification. Do we think we're gonna get a letter out of our attorney within 2 weeks who we have no relationship with? I don't think that.
No, but-
I think you should draft
Correct.
the
And
letter.
that's what I heard, is that we draft a letter, we have the attorney review it and say, yes, maybe include this language or that language, but they are not drafting the letter.
And could you send that to us a couple of days before the meeting so we can?
Yes.
We can edit?
Yeah, but I think Phil struck a note there too, where if we're doing filings on this project, whether it's us or the planning commission, everything probably needs a review before it goes up.
So that's the point that I made earlier, that I think it would be great if we could speak, if there was a single voice coming from the town of Hartland, the town of Hartland.
Right.
We can't have multiple town entities. It would be better if at this point, we didn't have multiple town entities submitting public comments, if we are in agreement on what those comments would be.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I think we're
saying the same thing.
Well, I think the three of us here are saying yes, and there's no motion here, but this is our intent.
It's just
Right, so you're
strategic. It's
comfortable
just
with the direction?
Exactly.
I knew this was gonna occur because I put it on asked to have it on the agenda so that they would be allowed to speak.
Yep.
Because I feel strongly that we should have gotten out in front of it earlier than what we did. And even though I do understand John's position on this, I truly do, because we haven't seen the documentation that is necessary to fight yet. And I also don't know what the rest of the community feels, other than you guys. My personal opinion is absolutely no way would I want to have that in the town that I grew up in. And we're gonna be able to see it. It's gonna look like Hartland's permanent statue as you enter into our town, because you will be able to see it from the fire station and from Four Corners. But also, we all need to get a general opinion for the rest of the town in there someplace. Yes.
Okay.
I think current use has a role in this too. I think that property should be, that plan should be looked at to see if it meets their current plan for that property.
It won't.
Yeah.
They'll just take it out of current.
They'll
use.
take it
It's
out
a-
of current.
It's a small penalty they'll have to pay. It's gonna be the smallest line item in their budget.
Well, it's penalty, whatever, it's
Okay,
revenue, somewhere.
so Clyde, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Are you in agreement with our next steps?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
So, just to clarify, the meeting on the 18th, which is again on a Tuesday because that Monday's a holiday, we will hold that meeting upstairs because I suspect we'll have a larger crowd. And we'll be ready for that. And again, that meeting's gonna start at 5 p.m.
5:30.
5.
5, so it'll be 2 o'clock my time. I'm gonna try to dial in.
Okay.
We're gonna do a board out on the thing in front, so people know.
We
Down.
could do that.
Post road.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, we should do a formal announcement somewhere.
Is it appropriate for us to ask someone from the Public Utility Commission to be present?
No, they won't.
I don't believe so at this point. This is what it in essence amounts with like a community conversation. We are having a discussion with the project developer at this point.
So they're regulators.
Right.
So they cannot come. They could send their clerk, but they generally will not.
Okay, that makes sense.
I just wanted to make one more comment, because, I know we all struggle with the self-service, and, but I made this point at the hearing with the planning committee, and I think it's an important question for ITW, because they're gonna tell us they're gonna fix all our problems. But we know that the Manascutney Tower just had a major upgrade approved, and that's only 9 miles away. Is that gonna fix our problems already?
Sure.
And the other thing is, we did an analysis of all the towers, either already present, approved or pending in between Killington, Springfield, and West Lev. There's 14 towers.
Yeah.
So are we really, is this gonna really bring value to our community with 14 either pending, approved towers or already built and a major upgrade at a sky? So I think we should ask ITW that question, because they're gonna tell us they're gonna fix our problems.
Yeah.
But let's really push them on,
And
what about all these other towers?
on a personal basis, I have a nephew that is a high-level engineer for AT&T, and he manages multiple groups on the East Coast to basically address lack of signal I'm very anxious to sort of see if I can explore what the technology that's going into Mount Escutney is. Is it the UHF wave or frequency?
We just know.
Because we know from a cell phone signal perspective, things are changing pretty rapidly. And is ITW planning, kind of, knowing this? But I'm going to do my homework to try to come up to speed from an engineering perspective. I'm not that type of engineer at all, but I'll do it. So.
And there is satellite, I get satellite now, I got a new phone, and my phone, I was sitting here in a meeting and said, would you like to connect to satellite?
Well, part of
So, as our phones get upgraded too, are we gonna need all these towers?
It's good, yeah.
So,
I
think, is it gonna be an empty tower like what's on Blood Hill Road, just sitting there?
I was gonna say, as part of the 248A real, like the real filing, if they do approach the commission, Public Utility Commission with a real filing, they have to show what public good it's going to serve, and they'll have to do those, like, bubble maps and things like that, so.
Right, and we are going to ask our fire and safety group to sort of say, there's something efficient that they could actually point out that this would be, they're doing it because of the Hartland Fire Department. I don't know. But we're trying to do our homework behind the scenes to address this.
Thank you.
Okay. Any wrap-up comments?
No, I think we have a plan.
Okay.
So we're going to let her do as soon as possible for the next meeting.
Okay. Moving on
And you guys are
to
going to start the notification process to reapprove the existing town plan? Next topic.
Next topic.
next topic.
Next topic.
Moving on to the town manager update.
Great.
So I've got a question.
Wait, hold on.
Would you address?
So we've talked about this at length. February 18th, 5 p.m., local concerns meeting with ITW upstairs at Damon Hall. We'll do notifications. We'll get that out there so folks are aware. I talked with Reese earlier. That we'll have enough equipment set up upstairs to capture public comments and things like that. There are 2 tracks currently happening with the town plan, both the 2024 town plan and the 2017 town plan, where the planning commission submitted the updated town plan to Two Rivers for their initial review. At the same time, I am working with Two Rivers to get the 2017 town plan readopted. That requires a couple of public meetings from the select board. I would like to schedule the first one for March 3rd. If that's the first meeting in March, just before town meeting. Without objection, if we could schedule those meetings at 5, so we can capture public comment, have a regularly scheduled board meeting at 5:30. We'll get those notifications going. Is that?
I think that's absolutely fine. My question is though, the process works, right? If we re-adopt it, no changes.
In essence, yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Re-adopt the 2017 plan.
No changes.
No changes.
So I think of it as an extension.
Right. In essence,
Extending until the new one's ready.
until the new one's ready. So we may be adopting the 2017 plan in March and April, and the new plan in June or July. But we want to make sure that we have that coverage just in case.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we just have to set the right expectation at these meetings that we'd love to hear your input, but please understand that your input, if you want things changed, you really need to go to the 2024 town plan.
Yeah, I think we're entering into a very confusing time.
It's,
Two Rivers is about to call the initial meeting on the new version.
Which one do I go to?
Right, exactly. It's confusing, but I think there is a path forward with both plans happening at the same time.
Okay.
Speaking of meetings, there's a Two Rivers, as part of their Thriving Communities grant, is holding a transportation-related community conversation on the 30th, January 30th at the library. Essentially, bike, ped, all that type of conversation. What would we like to see as a town? So that's at 6:30 at the library. And that's a part of that larger Thriving Communities grant that we are a part of.
What is the relationship of the now infamous survey that was done on the, Theo, you may know this, on the Route 5 corridor for bicyclists?
Carl's, the one that Carl was doing?
Yeah, well, it was a statewide.
Yeah.
It's a statewide survey. I don't know where that stands.
It's in V-Trans.
Right.
V-Trans has it. I mean, so
I hope Two Rivers will reference that this evening.
On the 30th.
Yeah, that's all where I was going on that.
Okay. We had just jumping over to the highway real quick. There was a minor accident with one of the trucks over the weekend. It's still very operational. They got accidentally backed into a somewhat hard bank. There was a little bit of damage. It's less than just about $1,000, so we'll just get it fixed and taken care of. We've had a couple of.
Is the truck operable?
The truck is fully operational and still being used. We've had a couple of near misses while the crew has been out trimming trees and things like that, even with sign packages and high-vis, gear on. So just mentioning it as you talk to people,
On paved roads or back roads?
Paved roads. As we're doing brush cutting, tree trimming, things like that. So it's important to, take it easy, slow down, please pass the word.
So, great. Is it worth, we're paying for sheriff's services. Do we get a sheriff detail for some of these? If they're
we could get a
high
sheriff
traffic
detail.
areas?
If we're on busy roads, yes, we could pursue that. What we're not gonna get is there's no actionable, there's no actionable information here. It turns into.
No, just to flag our
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
Yep, so I can follow up with Ryan on that. We missed each other on Friday.
Just what does a flagger group cost?
Expensive.
Flaggers are very expensive.
Very
A flagger is very expensive.
$50 an hour.
Right, yes. Very expensive.
Crazy.
I'll do it for 25.
So a couple of things. We got our generator quote. We had talked about, as this is the Emergency Operations Center for the town of Hartland, we got a generator quote from Brookfield Service. We will continue to pursue grants to pay for that. It came in just over $12,000. So we'll try to track down grants to cover that. But it's important, if this is going to be the Emergency Operations
That's just
Center,
for the generator.
that's just to hook up everything.
But do you need propane in ground?
Nope. That's the generator enough to run basically the lower level, keep the well going.
What is it, diesel?
He's asking fuel source.
No,
It's propane, they're usually propane.
they're usually propane.
Yeah, because
I read it and then made the notes and.
I'm just saying there might be another charge to get, Coda or Dead River, whoever to set up a propane tank.
You have a tank here,
Right.
they would just change their fill schedule, that's all.
A lot of times what they require now, I don't know if it's a state thing or a desire by the propane companies, they require a separate tank for generator.
So we had talked about having a pre-town meeting. We've talked about having a lot of meetings in the past 30 minutes or so. I would like to get that on the calendar so we can get that noticed. A couple of dates. I don't know if folks have calendars available, but it looks like the first couple of weeks in February are probably the best weeks for that meeting. Otherwise, we're getting too close to town meeting itself.
And this was just around sensitivity on the Quechee Road?
This is Quechee Road and other articles, kind of getting the information out. We'll hold it in the evening, so those folks who can't come to Tuesday town meeting can still provide feedback on non-voting, but can provide feedback. So my initial proposal would be either the 10th or the 11th
Of February.
of February for those meetings.
And
That's good for me.
you'd have a deck prepared to go over the key issues?
I mean, a light slide deck to kind of touch on them. Obviously, we would expand on it. I would expand on it before town meeting, but if there's a preference for the 10th or the 11th, it's a Monday or Tuesday, I believe.
We don't have a strong preference.
Okay.
Notice I'd vote Monday because we're used to Mondays.
Okay.
5 or 5:30?
Why don't we do 5:30? Gives folks who are working a little bit more time to get here.
So that's on the 10th, we're saying?
Yep, on February 10th at 5:30. We'll get that notice then and put on the calendar.
So February 10th, February 18th, got March 3rd.
Yeah, exactly.
You got anything before February? When's our next select board meeting?
February 3rd.
February 3rd. Don't forget March 4th on that list too, because that's
March
town
3rd
meeting.
and 4th?
That's town meeting.
Okay, March 4th.
You gotta come to that one.
I am going to go to that.
Yeah, killing my schedule there.
Dust off your
All day. Who's making lunch?
And then lastly, just as a quick note, Martin will be out through Monday. Michelle will be covering the finance office, so it'll be business as usual, but just so you know, Martin will not be here. That is it.
February 3rd, February 10th, February 18th.
Future agenda items.
March 3rd, March 4th. Do that. And I'll do
The ITW correspondence,
ITW correspondence.
and what was the other that came up tonight?
someday.
So Lull Farm Lane, just revisiting, we'll keep Lull Farm Lane on the future agenda items, so it doesn't fall off the bat. It's important to note, the future agenda items list, kind of continues to grow. We try to, take things on and move progress, but some of these are kind of long-term discussions or, seasonal discussions. We obviously can't do, Lull Farm Lane, we can't do Bird Hill without feedback from the residents, so that list will continue to get a little bigger, but hopefully that doesn't mean we're not taking action on these things in the background.
Right, and
It helps us not forget that they're out there.
Right.
It helps us not forget that they're out there.
yeah, I agree, and I said to John that the two of us should work on the Quechee Road town correspondence, what are we doing, what, if we're going to have a special vote for a bond in fall or something like that, there are a lot of things we need to do before that.
Yeah.
So, I started doing a project plan for that, and I know you have too, so we'll get that going. Any correspondence?
Yes.
So just before we get there though, we have, if we're doing a select board meeting before town meeting, I get the feeling we usually cancel those because there's no place to do them.
Because it would be set up for voting down here,
And upstairs.
and we set up for town meeting upstairs.
We go to the library.
We could hold it offsite. There's no requirement that we hold it here. They have the
You just
same,
have to give notice.
right, it would be noticed, and we'd coordinate with these folks over here, but they have the same audio capabilities that we do.
Right.
And is the pre-town meeting for the school budget, is that the Monday?
That is, it's a Monday.
Usually Monday before 7 o'clock.
We'll make sure that we are not overlapping with those folks as well.
Okay.
We'll take a look at the calendar. There's correspondence, it relates to one of the future agenda items as well. So we got a letter from VIII, letting us know that the Willard Covered Bridge project that they were going to fully fund under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act money, that money is no longer available to us. So if we would like to continue with the Mill Street Willard Bridge project, we need to accept the fact that they will provide some funding, but there will be town match required, of which we don't know what that would be, because they don't know what pot of money would be used.
So they don't know what the percentage would be?
They don't know what the percentage would be.
What are the choices?
The choices are continue and keep the project in the bridge program.
Yeah.
They will continue to pursue funding for it. We would have to come up with a match when or if they come up with their share. Or we take it out of the bridge program and then we are essentially fully responsible for it.
I don't think we have a choice. I don't think that's a choice.
This is, this is the correspondence and the discussion. I would not encourage you to do that.
John, how is the winter maintenance going on
We continue to have some of the same issues, especially early in the season. The first time we're using some of those, we're using the road through Twin State. I've not heard of any issues since then.
Good. Okay, don't tell me anymore.
So we will let V-Trans know that we wish to remain in the bridge program for the Willard Covered Bridge.
Yes.
Great.
Okay.
So that's it for correspondence.
Okay, any other business?
Monday, yesterday, at Historical Society, we were talking about heat pump. Do you remember what the cost was?
The cost that I've met with two folks for the Historical Society heat pump. The first quote we got was just over $7,000. At the recommendation of the board, I reached out to Simple Energy and met with them maybe a week and a half ago, and I have not seen a follow-up quote from them.
Because we discussed it, and we're willing to, help share costs.
Yep, so that, as soon as we get the second quote, we'll bring that conversation back to the select board as well.
And I would love the Historical Society to take over the Nature Club belongings and collection.
Well, you'll find room over there to put them.
Okay, so
Time to go.
let's motion to adjourn.
So moved.